guys, and welcome to Escape Wheel Watch Reviews. My name is Steve, and today we're going to be reviewing the Didun Design Master of the Seas, if you know what I mean. I was sent this watch for free from the didunstore.com. I don't have to send the watch back, and if you watch this review, you will see that I hold nothing back. You will always get my honest review on this watch channel. Saying that, if you do want to pick this up at the end of the review, I will leave their link down in the video description, but I suggest you watch this entire review before you do. The current retail price for this watch on their website is about $219 US, and that's before any taxes or sales or coupons or anything like that. The watch is available in 5 different colorways that you can see here, and honestly they all look pretty good. And it's nice that they give you an option of a rubber strap, because the bracelet is you'll see. The watch case is made of 316L stainless steel. It has a sapphire crystal, screw-down crown, screw-down case back, 100 meters of claimed water resistance as a ceramic bezel insert, and the watch is powered by the Miyota 8215 automatic movement. So this is a watch that I've put off reviewing for a while now because I'm pulled in a lot of different directions on this one. Just stick through this review, and in my conclusion section, you'll get to know how I really feel about this watch in the store. So with all that being said, I say we get into this full review. But before we do, I want to apologize for any noise that you're hearing outside my window. Kind of trying to fit this review in pretty quick. And yeah, someone's doing some lawn work, so hopefully that'll stop pretty soon. Hopefully you don't hear it. But I am wearing the Boltony exploring style watch here, still on that 5-link bracelet, and I think it looks really good, and I'm loving this watch still. Go check out the review for that right here. Alright, so let's get the dimensions out of the way. So on their website, they list this as a 41mm watch, and as you can see, it is 42mm at the bezel. They also list it as 12mm thick, and it is 14.5mm thick. So right there, 2 big red flags for me. We have 20mm lug width, a lug tip to lug tip of 49.7mm. So with those end links, it is 55.7mm. And sized up for my 7.5-inch wrist with 1 link removed. It weighs just under 170 grams. So yeah, this watch is pretty big. 42, 14.5 thick, almost 50 lug to lug, and then almost 56 with the end link to end link. It's big and it's chunky and it's heavy. Some people will like that. I'm not a huge fan of it. The thing I don't like about this the most is the lies that are on their website. It is not 41mm. I didn't measure 41mm anywhere, and it is not 12mm thick. It is 14.5mm thick, so 2.5mm thicker than they claim. So yeah, that's 2 big knocks on the website right off the bat. I don't like to see that at all. With that being said, it does wear pretty good. You know, these Master of the Seas style cases with the twisted lugs there really helps slim down the watch a little bit. You know, it's got a pretty slim mid case here as well, so I don't think it wears like a 14.5mm thick watch. That never really jumped out to me as a bad part of the watch. The end links definitely do. So I'm going to go outside right now and throw this on my wrist for you. And here we are on my 7.5-inch wrist, and as you can see, it wears fine. It's a little bit long, definitely long with those male end links sticking out, and they stick straight out. It does sit pretty nicely. The thickness doesn't wear as thick as the numbers would suggest, but yeah, I don't like it on this bracelet. I'm just going to come out and say it. Don't get it on the bracelet. We'll talk about the bracelet in more detail later on, but it's just not a good fit for this watch. And no micro adjust and no half links. So I have to wear this one a little bit loose, and when I do, it slides down my wrist like that, and then the crown digs into the back of my hand. So it's just not a good combination at all. So I'm going to go throw this on some straps, and we'll get back to the review. And here we are on a kind of a heavier mesh style bracelet, something that you might see on a Bond style one of these watches. So figured it would look good on this, and it does look pretty good. What do you guys think of that? And here we are on a black rubber strap from Strapsco. My wife said that this one would look pretty good, and I think she's right. Usually blue and black don't go together too well, but this I think works pretty good. What do you guys think of that? And lastly, here we are on a nylon strap. We got 2 layers underneath the watch there. It sits up a little high still, but it's not bad. I think it still wears pretty comfortably for what it is, and I think it looks pretty good. All right, let's go back inside and let's get back to this review. All right, so let's talk about the case and the case finishing. So the case and case finishing, it's done pretty nicely, actually. I'm pleasantly surprised with it. It is a mixture of brushed and polished surfaces, so you have a nice brushing on the side of the case here. You have these polished chamfers that go from one lug tip, then taper down real thin along the edge here. You can see it's still polished, and then flare back out to the other tip there. So it's really nicely done, and then you can see you have an angular brushing in between the lug opening and that chamfer there, and it's done fairly well. I'm not gonna say it's excellent. You can see getting up close there's a little bit of bleed over, but you know, from a distance on the wrist you never really notice it. I think it looks pretty good, and I'm overall fairly satisfied with the case finishing on this thing. Flipping it to the crown side here, again you can see these really nice scallops here. Yeah, they did a good job. Polished crown guards there, a pretty decent sized crown here, tucks in nicely. It is signed with the Didun logo there, and everything is done pretty good. I'm overall pretty satisfied with that. Flipping it over to the case back here, you've got your Master of the Seas style case back, brushed and polished. It's got a little bit of a spec sheet around the outside, and then you got your display window showing off the Miyota 8215. I got no problems with that. This is all done pretty nicely. This bottom edge here, it hasn't really been honed too much. It's fairly soft, but you know, it stays off the wrist for the most part, so you don't notice any of the sharp edges or anything like that. So overall, I am pretty satisfied with the case on this watch. All right, so let's talk about the bezel on this thing. So the bezel is a 90-click unidirectional bezel. You can see here, there's not much play in it. It's a pretty solid bezel. It sounds pretty decent as well, so I'm going to let you listen to this. So yeah, I think the sound and the feel and the feedback, it's all pretty good. The resistance is just about right. You don't have too much grip on this, but it's not terribly hard to turn. And you can see here, the alignment is definitely off in either direction. So the alignment on this thing, QC, not the greatest. And yeah, I think the bezel insert itself, it's pretty nicely done. It's kind of this dark teal color. It's not really a blue. It's like a dark teal. I don't think it's coming across on the camera well, but yeah, it is done pretty good. It's a ceramic bezel insert, pretty nice engravings as you can see there. And as much as I try and clean this off, you can see, I'm just going to concentrate right here. There's always kind of this like fuzzy look to it. So it's not the cleanest bezel that I've seen, but definitely was something you don't really notice until you get really, really close to it. You do have a loomed pip there at the 12 o'clock. It's raised up a little bit, so it might get knocked off. Everything else is just white paint. It's not loomed or anything like that. And then the finishing on the bezel, kind of the same as the case, pretty nicely done for what it is, and I'm overall pretty satisfied with it. It's not overly sharp or anything like that, and I do have enough grip to turn that bezel. So the bezel on this thing, it's pretty good for what it is. All right, let's talk about the crystal on this thing. First thing first, we will test it for sapphire. And there's another knock. This is mineral crystal. I'll even turn up the sensitivity here. That is mineral crystal. Flipping it over to the back, that is also mineral crystal. No surprise there. So yeah, there is another knock and another lie on the spec sheet. This is mineral crystal. They say it's sapphire with anti-reflective coating. I see no AR coating, and obviously it is not sapphire. So yeah, another real big disappointment. I didn't notice anything. I noticed that the crystal is fairly clear, but that kind of explains why mineral crystal is less reflective than sapphire crystal. It is a double dome mineral crystal, as you can see there, and it flows pretty nicely with the design in my opinion. So yeah, I don't have any major knocks against the crystal other than the fact that they completely lied about the material on it. All right guys, let's talk about the dial on this thing. Again, sorry about the noise, but you know, these guys just won't quit. So let's get real close. We'll talk about the dial. It is pretty nicely done, very nicely executed in my opinion, but there's some things that we need to talk about. So you can see you got a really nice wave pattern on it. It's just a matte dial. There's no sunburst or anything like that, but I think the waves are done pretty nicely, well defined. I think the applied indices are also done pretty nicely. You can see they seem to be applied fairly straight. If you get real close on this 12 o'clock one, you can see they're just a little bit off, but It's not something you will see on wrist or anything like that. The dial text on this is unusual, and again, lies. So you see you got your Didun automatic coaxial. This is not a coaxial movement. I'm not sure what this L60H is. I didn't see a model number or anything like that on the listing, so I'm not really sure what that is in reference to. Then water resistant, 100 meters, 330 feet. Got a simple printed minute track around the outside. Pretty cool design on this thing, obviously taken straight from the Omega. And then you can see you have a date window here. I'll move the hands out of the way real quick. But if you look on the renderings on their site, I'll pop one up here while I'm messing with this. They show a color matched date wheel. Obviously, we are not getting a color matched date wheel. So again, lies. It is fairly nicely done, nicely centered, I would say. Little chamfer there. It's simple, it's effective. I've got no real complaints with the dial on this thing. I think they did a pretty good job on it. The handset, it's a little bit short, as you can see there, but your typical skeletonized style of hands for this watch. Little red dash there on the seconds hand. Again, pretty short, as you can see there. It never really bothered me too much on this one, but yeah, they definitely could lengthen those a little bit, and I think it would look a lot better. The lume on this thing is pretty disappointing, and I'll pop up a lume shot here. You can see it against a couple other watches in the collection, and I mean, it just doesn't do very good. It fades pretty quickly. The hands fade almost immediately. The dial does hang on pretty decently, but it's just not good lume. Don't depend on this thing for the lume. It's not good. It's like Pagani design levels. Yeah, it's just not good lume. All right, so let's talk about the movement in this thing. So the movement is the Miyota 8215, as you can see there. It's been pretty good for me. Here's how mine is running. Negative 10 seconds a day about. Beat error is not great as well. And I mean, it just comes with your typical nuances of the Miyota movement. It is all operated by this 3 o'clock screw down crown here. Screw in and screw out action has been fine for me, actually. No problems there. Pretty grippy crown. You do get a nice satisfying pop out of the crown as well. First position, hand winds it, nice and smooth. Second position is your date change. Again, no issues with that. Everything seems pretty well centered. Third position does hack the movement, which was a surprise for me. The 8215 is kind of a hit or miss if it hacks or not. So this one is hacking. And this is where you set your time. Everything functions as you would expect it to. No jumping of the seconds hand or anything like that. Again, screw in action is fine. But you know, it's got the typical issues with the 8215. It's got the stuttering second hand. If you bang it, the seconds hand will stop. And then obviously the unidirectional winding rotor. So when this thing gets spinning, it just keeps on spinning. You can feel it, you can see it, you can hear it. Yeah, it's just not my favorite movement, but it's a workhorse movement. It'll last you forever. Yeah, they're very reliable and fairly accurate. So I don't see the movement as being too big of a negative in this watch, but at $219, you should be getting something a little bit higher quality in my opinion. All right, so let's talk about the bracelet. So first off, I want to say the watch head on this thing, it's pretty decent. It's got good bezel action. The crystal is mineral, which is a letdown, but the dial is pretty nice and the finishing is pretty nice. Well, that all stops when you get to the bracelet. So I'm just going to go over the specs of the bracelet first off. So it is 20 millimeters and it tapers down to 20 millimeters. So it's a straight 20 millimeter bracelet here. It is solid links. It is solid end links, as you can see there. They are male protruding end links. You can see that's how it hangs down. And you can also see it's a pretty stiff bracelet. So that should just drop down immediately, and it doesn't. So this first link is very stiff. I've had some other links that hang up on each other. The impressive thing is that this is actually a 9-link bracelet. So you have your 3 big links, and then these little links are actually 3 separate pieces, as you can see right there. So that is pretty impressive for a watch like this, considering the rest of the bracelet is so bad. They actually used full solid links, which is kind of nice. You have push pins for adjusting. I removed 1 link. You have no half links. You have no micro adjust. So I'm wearing this one a little bit loose, unfortunately, because this is a heavy watch, and wearing it loose, it kind of digs into the wrist, like I mentioned earlier. So yeah, I'm not too happy with the fact that there's no micro adjust. The clasp on this thing is your typical clasp for a watch like this. It does have a nice Didun design logo stamped in there, brushed on the top, brushed on the side, a little polished chamfer there. So I think it works pretty good. These buttons are nicely rounded and everything is comfortable. Everything functions fine. I've got no issues with the way this watch opens and closes. So yeah, not a huge deal there. You can see that it does have a very big diver's extension there. You'll never use it. I don't see why they keep putting that on this watch. So yeah, I think the clasp is fine. I do really want to see some micro adjust on this clasp and just ditch that diver's extension. No one's going to use that, and they keep on using those clasps. I don't know why. So yeah, I think the finishing on it, it's pretty okay. A little bit rough on the brushing, as you can see here. And then the polished links, they seem fine. I got no problems with that. But I mean, the big thing is these male end links. They shoot straight out. This thing is almost 40 or 56 millimeters lug to lug. That's going to be a big deal breaker for a lot of people. The fitment in here, you can hear, I don't know if you guys can hear it, but I can wiggle these things and it ticks around. It doesn't really translate on wrist or anything like that, but yeah, it's just not the tightest fitting bracelet. It's just not a good bracelet. If I was going to buy a watch like this, or if I was going to buy this watch, I would definitely just get it on the rubber strap. So there you go, guys. That is the Didun Design Master of the Seas from didunstore.com. I'm going to come straight out and say it. Do not buy this watch from that store. They lie multiple times. They show a colored date wheel. It's not a colored date wheel. The coaxial, that's false as well. It's not sapphire like they say. It's not 12 millimeters thick like they say. And it's not 41 millimeters in diameter like they say. This watch and that listing is just full of lies and deceit. Don't buy this watch from them. If you are going to buy this watch, I've seen this watch on AliExpress for $75. And for $75, it's not a bad watch. But just know going in, you know, I don't think the specs are going to change. So you're going to get a mineral crystal on this thing. And it's going to say coaxial. It's going to come with a white date wheel. Just know that going in. If you pay $75 or less for this watch, it's not a horrible watch. The watch head, I think, is pretty good. The bracelet is terrible. I would just skip that. But yeah, just don't buy the watch from didunstore.com. I know I will never get a watch from them again after saying this, and that is completely fine. All of their watches are overpriced, and the website looks very nice and very legit, and that's probably why they're getting sales, or at least claiming they're getting sales. But just don't buy it from them. It's $219. You can get a San Martin of the same style for about that price, and that's going to be a much, much, much better watch than this one. So yeah, that's all I'm saying. Just lies and deceit on this one. Very disappointing. Disappointed in the store that, you know, this is the reason why reviewers exist, in my opinion, to point out stuff like this. The average Joe, if they go on and they find this watch on that store, they might say, okay, that's pretty cool. They're never going to find out that it's not sapphire, and they're not going to find out that, you know, the bracelet isn't great if they don't have access to a bunch of other watches like I do. So yeah, if you guys have stuck through this whole thing, maybe consider leaving a thumbs up or a like, a subscribe if you haven't subscribed, all that fun stuff. I think that's it for me though. Thanks a lot for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one. See ya.